Introducing Royal Caribbean's newest ship, Icon of the Seas, the ultimate family vacation. The ultimate 6 slides, 8 neighborhoods, 0 compromise vacation. The ultimate never done that, can't wait to do it vacation. The ultimate chillin' by a different pool every day of the week vacation. This is the Icon of Vacations. Icon of the Seas, arriving in 2024. Book today. Come seek the Royal Caribbean. Ships Registry, Bahamas.
This episode is brought to you by Pepsi Wild Cherry. Pepsi Wild Cherry is bursting with delicious cherry flavor and a sweet, crisp taste that gives you more to go wild for. Getting wild may look different these days, but whether it's opting for a solo Friday binge watch or a big night out, everyone can indulge in their wild side with Pepsi Wild Cherry. Also available in 0 sugar. So grab a Pepsi Wild Cherry and get wild.
Hi there, Duke fans. Welcome to episode 539 of the Duke Basketball Roundup. We are here to talk some football. It was really tough, but also there's definitely some positives from our game against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Before we get to all that, I want to bring in my buddy Donald. I'm Jason Evans. Oh yeah, hello. Who are you? I'm Jason. He's Donald. Donald, how's your weekend going other than the Blue Devils losing that game?
You know, we're going to talk about it. There's obviously it was more of a bittersweet into the night, and just, you know, being able to kind of talk about it with you and everyone else who's already emailed us. We've gotten some emails from people.
Oh, yeah.
We really appreciate that. DBR Podcast at gmail.com. If you just want to let loose on the game, you know, go ahead and email us. But yeah, it was a magical day, and the night didn't end the way we wanted, but there's still, as you mentioned, a lot to take away from it.
Absolutely. And let's start with, you said magical day. Let's start with the magical day. College game day was in Durham, and it was, man, hat tip to all the Blue Devil fans who turned out. They really showed out. And the ESPN people were raving about what it was like to be at Duke, how great the atmosphere around campus was. Donald, give me your impressions from several hours in the morning of the college football world being centered at Duke University.
It was awesome. Like, it was simply amazing. Like, the entire, again, like you said, shout out to everybody who was able to make it out. I was up at like 7 a.m. So they were doing Sports Center hit to like 7:30 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning, right before leading into game day. And like, they had, I mean, I think I saw Duke football put out a tweet at like 6 a.m. and there was like 1,000 people already there. Like, that's tremendous. And the whole like spectacle of college game day is always fun to watch, but when it's on your campus, it means something a little bit different. And for us being able to experience that for the first time, it really showed well on TV. Jason, I will talk about some of the posters and stuff. The posters were A quality. Like,
wait,
everybody
hold
came
on.
with it.
I want to do this right now. I want to hear,
Go ahead.
What was your favorite? I got one I know was my favorite poster. What was your favorite poster?
Oh, my favorite. I'll mention a couple, and I think there was one that said Rudy got waitlisted by Duke. That was a good one.
Well, wait, mine was related to that. My favorite, I think, was there was one that had Bull Durham. It had a, you know, less than or greater than sign. Bull Durham greater than Rudy. I was like, that's good stuff. As a movie guy, I had high appreciation for that sign.
Yeah, there was another one with King Jung from his role from The Hangover, and it was like, you know, DDMF, but in basically you could read it in the voice that King Jung has from The Hangover. If you know what DDMF means, I don't need to say it on this podcast, but if you don't know what it means, I don't know, Google it. It's very easy. But that one was pretty cool. There's a lot about Elko being like, you know, there was one where it said Marcus Freeman's 10 Commandments, and it was the 10 players on the field at the end of the game against Ohio State.
That's good.
That one was probably my favorite, the 10 Commandments one. And then they were like, how ranked number 11th, but can't count beyond 10 or something like that. Like,
right.
there was a lot of
I saw that one.
play on 10.
I like that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So those were a couple of my favorites.
Strong sign game from the Duke fans, and man, that it was packed. There were a lot of people and a lot of signs. It was really, really impressive, and I loved. So there was lots of debate over whether Ken Jeong was the right, guest picker, Duke person to be out there representing. I thought he did a great look. On the last podcast, we talked about who the possibilities were, and you asked me who was my pick, and I was like, my first Ken Jeong. I was like, automatic. I thought he was great. Tremendous energy. He brought the humor and intelligence. I thought he was outstanding. I'm upset, obviously, that his pick didn't work out. And I thought Lee Corso looked ridiculous in that little leprechaun outfit.
I will say there was a moment. I'm glad he's okay, but he's getting up there. There's a point where he just disappeared to put on the leprechaun outfit, and a bunch of us were kind of texting each other. I think a lot of people on social media like, yo, where's Lee Corso? Why he just up and leave? Did something happen? And of course he was getting into the outfit, and that was my first guess. But there was a moment where everyone was like, yo, is everything okay? Because he doesn't just get up and leave during the picks for any reason. It's usually just he takes that, someone hands him the headgear and he puts it on. So there was that moment. I will also say a funny low light. It was we can call it a low light, but it was a funny one, was the field goal kicker. Oh boy. Attempting to kick for $37,500. Then he missed it. He only kicked it 4 yards. And then Pat McAfee's like, yo, there's no way I can lose this bet. So I'll give him $1 million if I'll give him another shot. And if he makes it, I'll give him $1 million instead of 37.5. And he kicked the Duke football, like Twitter guys, like the social media guys, like camera, like the ball went straight into the crowd, into the camera. Great shot. Hey, content hashtag. But yeah, that was still like a funny thing, a little light, but like it was still a funny one. But man, everyone showed out. It was great. I think the best part, Jason, it's kind of breaking news, was when they had Mike Elko on right before they had the segment of like a bunch of different questions that they do. And the greatest one was, they said, talk about Michigan State firing Mel Tucker. And Mike Elko has been at the top of everyone's wish list when it comes to that particular job. And they said, hey, who would you like to see take over Michigan State? And Pat McAfee just pointed, at Mike Elko, who was about to come on stage. And Mike Elko immediately put thumbs down, was like, absolutely not. So if that's the statement we need, I'm cool. I'm cool with that. If that also means like, hey, we're going to be, we could talk about that, whole thing later. But I think that was one where, again, the fact that Mike Elko is at the top of a lot of these lists means that he's doing a good job here. And we'll be quick to note that, hey, you kind of, at the same time, while you want your coach to stay if he's doing a good job, you also kind of like when they're being, their name is being kicked around, because it means that you found something, a diamond in the rough that everyone else wants. Now you have to hang on to it. I think we're going to hang on to him, at least with regards to Michigan State.
I mean, I don't know what else Elko could have done other than the thumbs down. I mean,
right.
Like,
yeah. I'm thinking about it. Like,
yeah, if he even does that, that's not a good look. But that said, everything I'm hearing is that Elko is very happy at Duke. Duke is treating him properly. And that's, we're talking about compensation, and that Michigan State, which is just a train wreck of a situation, he has no interest in that. Hey, I do want to mention one thing. We talked very briefly about Ken Jeong, who of course picked Duke, and Lee Corso, who dressed up like a silly looking leprechaun and picked the Fighting Irish. But I think it is worth noting, when you're talking about the Duke program, that most of the other ESPN guys picked the Blue Devils, and
all of them did except for Lee. Yeah.
I feel awful for people who, the line was 5.5. Man, that was a brutal way to lose a 5.5 point line, because it looked first of all, it looks like Duke may win. You got a 4th and 6, like Duke's probably going to win outright. So I don't even need my 5.5. And then you're like, oh, they made the first down. You're like, well, they're going to Notre Dame's going to kick the field goal now. And so you're like, oh, I'm still going to win. And then they rush it in the end zone, and you're like, oh, they're up 5, but they have to go for 2. So you're like, there are a million ways. If you had Duke plus the 5.5 up until Notre Dame converted that 2-point conversion, you're feeling pretty good. And then, what a mess.
Jason, I know you watched the Bad Beat segment that Scott Van Pelt has on SportsCenter every week. It's a great segment. And the little video that they do when they bring on that segment, it starts with, you know what it starts with? It starts with the Belk Bowl in 2012 when we played Cincinnati and we were down, we had like the line, and basically we gave it the 2 touchdowns in the last like 40 seconds of the game. And it's like the original bad beat that Scott Van Pelt was like, man, that was super bad. I was always thinking, maybe there's some way for us to be eliminated from the segment because, or from the video at least, because, hey, there's been a lot of bad beats since then. We might have a new one that they might just replace it with, because that one was that was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad. All right, enough of the preamble. Let's get to the actual game. This contest that Notre Dame ends up pulling out 21-14. This was absolutely a game where my takeaway, I'm gonna put rose-colored glasses on here. Duke showed they belong among the nation's best. I don't know how.
Before you go.
Yeah,
I wholeheartedly agree with that. If we end the podcast right there, I want everybody to know that is absolutely how I feel about this.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back on the next episode.
Boom.
Duke belongs among the best teams in the land. Look, I'll show you the respect. The new AP poll came out. Duke dropped from 17 to 19. That tells you all you need to know. The whole country watched this game, and the takeaway the whole country had was that, yeah, absolutely, Duke is absolutely one of the top 20 teams in the land and capable, not saying we'd be favored or anything crazy like that, but capable of beating any team in the country. Because if you're going to play, if you go toe-to-toe with Notre Dame, you're capable of beating anyone in the land. And I have to tip my cap. I don't even know what you say about Mike Elko, the job that he has done. And to me, perhaps the most impressive thing was, this was the second time this season where Duke went into halftime and you were like, it's not looking that great. Like, the team has not played well in the first half. And they go, it's night and day, the team that comes out in the second half. Mike Elko is able not just to inspire his players, challenge them, and really get them to buy into what he is telling them they need to do as halftime adjustments. Because the Duke of the first half and the Duke of the second half, two completely different teams. And that's a credit to the players and to the coaching staff. And again, we can get into the details of the game, and we will, but my first and biggest thing, Duke belongs. And I'm not sure I've ever been able to definitively say that the way I'm saying it right now.
Jason, I think again, with the rose-colored glasses on, or the Duke-covered glasses on, whatever, the thing that you take away from this game is that, once again, we didn't have a great game. There was a lot of individual performances that weren't great. We didn't have, like, the offense struggled for most of the game. The defense, I thought, played very well and was trying to keep it together and trying to keep us in the game. And if you think about it, Jason, we did all that. We missed 2 field goals, which Polino never misses field goals. Like, that man has ever missed field goals. And at the end of the day, we still were in range to win this game the entire way through. Like, that's a testament to how well these guys prepared. And again, they talked about seizing the moment of this big game, having game day and everything. And I think, they didn't play as well as they wanted to, but the moment was definitely seized. Like you said, people left that game saying, hey, this Duke team can play. And if they're a couple of bounces of the football, a couple of field goals, a 4th and 16 where a guy never runs and he goes for 17 yards. There's a lot of things that, these details that are one thing away from this being us, maybe having a podcast last night, spraying champagne into the air because we're 5-0.
Yeah, baby. Yeah, it's so tantalizingly close. You mentioned all that. Look, to say nothing, the 4th and 16 where he makes 17 yards, Todd Polino missing the 2 field goals. By the way, last year, Todd Polino was 6 of 6 on field goals of less than 40 yards. This year, he's just 2 of 5. 2 of them missed yesterday, including one like 20. It was like 25 yards. It was like unbelievable that he missed that kick. But it's not just those plays. That on the final drive, there was that, I don't want to call it a dropped interception, but it was a possible interception.
Yep.
He dove and it was in his hands and popped out. Would have been a great interception, but not one that you think is super unlikely. We almost had a safety in the end zone on a blitz where Sam Hartman was dead to rights. Like, the guy came in unblocked, and Hartman just barely got got rid of the, sidestepped and got rid of the ball. So there were just so many ways. And then the other one is that the pooch kick. Now, look, I do not disagree with Mike Elko wanting to pin Notre Dame deep. Elko talked about the fact that Notre Dame's kicker has a huge leg, and giving Notre Dame the ball on the 30, which is where the pooch kick came from, is kind of scary that they don't need to go that far at that point. Like 2 first downs and Notre Dame would be within legitimate kicking range with their kicker and his leg. That said, in retrospect, I kind of wish we had gone for it and been like, this is it, this play, we are winning this game on this play. But oh well.
So Jason, that particular play, and this is not, ladies and gentlemen, this is not to single out that play as the make or break for why we lost, right? This is just one of a million.
The 4th and 16. The 4th and 16. And by the way, Mike Elko went to sleep last night. I'll let you continue. Mike Elko went to sleep last night saying in his head, why did I only rush 3? Why? Because he had been pressuring Hartman relentlessly. He's like, why did I only rush? Because if we even rushed 4 guys, if we even rushed 4 guys, I'm convinced that there's no way Hartman is able to run for it. Maybe he finds an open receiver in that case, although I kind of doubt it because got a lot of guys in coverage there. But only rushing 3 guys, just too much field. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So on that 4th and 6, right? 4th and 6 at the 33-yard line, you kick the field goal. It will be kicking from 40. So it's a 50-yard field goal for Todd Plano, who had missed 2 already. I think that was where the guessing game or like the hesitation came in, because normally you'd say, hey, give it to Plano and see what, if he gets it, that's cool. If not, hey, we tried. Going for it on 4th and 6 is not in the play. It's not in the script, right? That's not something that anyone would say, 4th and 6, you absolutely should go for it. Punting it, if they get a touchback, it gets out to the 25 anyway. So in essence, we're talking about a 4th and 6 versus a punt, which if you touch back, if you do a full punt, if you touch back, is going to be 7 yards. So that was a really sticky situation for them to figure out, especially with such late in the game. And I don't mind the pooch punt. I think the retrospect is we know what happened after that.
Right.
So
if we get the safety, we're all saying the pooch punt's a brilliant play. Yeah,
exactly. And so it's a difficult situation. I do not envy the coaching staff for having to make that decision versus those 3 kind of options that they had to go for. And again, I'm sure Plano was probably sitting there like, hey, I know I've missed 2, but give me another shot. That is on the card. That's on the table. And there's a lot of scenarios here. I think the bittersweet part of this, right? And if I can move forward a little bit in this game towards the very end, the touchdown was a backbreaker. The 2-point conversion was a backbreaker. And then Riley Leonard going down when we're trying to desperately try to get to a point where we can maybe make a heave for it, and getting hurt on that play. It's the way that game transpired. We did not deserve that ending. Hats off to Notre Dame. Notre Dame deserved to win that game. Duke would have deserved to win that game. We could have gone down and been 4th and 6 and tried for it and missed it, and it would have been fine. I would have been taken that and said, hey, we gave it a great effort. And I thought, we hung in there despite some of the mistakes, and we gave it to one of the top programs in college football history at our house in front of everybody's eyeballs. The ending that we got was not deserved because it was so heartbreaking the way that we lost. And then also to add insult to injury, we literally, our starting quarterback, who did not have the best night, and he had a lot of pressure. But again, there was moments where he stepped up, both with his arm and with his leg. We have this moment where he goes down in front of the whole nation. And now we're talking about, we have to think about the next 6 weeks potentially being without him.
We should tell everybody, if you haven't heard yet, Pete Thamel of ESPN says that this is a high ankle sprain for Riley Leonard, and that probably means most of the stuff says 4 to 6 weeks. It can be potentially long. High ankle sprains can be really bad.
6 weeks is the sweet spot. 6 weeks is normally the sweet spot, but it depends on how you respond to it. For some people, depending on how bad it is, and I don't know how what grade there is. They have varying grades. Sometimes they kind of go, if you remember, this happened to Kevin Durant and a couple seasons ago, and Kevin Durant, they basically said, hey, you're not doing anything with your leg for at least 8 weeks. You're not moving, you're going to be in a boot, you're not even going to be walking for 8 weeks, and then we'll reevaluate. This is where we'll probably get some clarity from Duke, at least some clarity. I know they like to kind of keep those close to the chest.
Yeah.
But I honestly think, a high ankle sprain is something that can be serious to the point where he could be out for an extended period of time. And that means next man up. We had some injuries this time. Next man up for whoever, not just for quarterback, but all these guys. We had a couple of injuries last night, and we want to make sure that everybody is ready after this bye week to go against, for the rest of the season.
Yeah. So it's almost certainly going to be Henry Beeline, or Bellin, I guess. I can't, I'm not good at pronouncing his name yet. I will get it. I promise that. He's going to be the new quarterback. He looked very good earlier this season, in the few times that we've gotten to see him, but that was not against the level of competition that Duke's going to have coming up. I think it's a very, never a good time to have your quarterback get hurt. But if they're going to get hurt, coming into a bye week is a pretty good time to get everyone acclimated to the new signal caller. Duke does not have a game coming up this week. After that, we will play NC State. And NC State's, they're not great, but they're good. And it will be a challenge for Duke. But what I really worry about, and I think it's highly unlikely that we'll have Riley Leonard back in time for this, but after NC State, we're at Florida State and at Louisville. Louisville, by the way, is now ranked. They're ranked number 25.
And they're 5-0.
Yeah.
And leading the ACC.
Yeah. So those two games, Florida State and Louisville, 2 games on the road, really, really a tough, tall order for the Blue Devils without Riley Leonard. That said, I want to point out just 2 other things from this game before we wrap it up. One is I was tremendously impressed with how well we ran all over an elite Notre Dame defense in the second half. Like in the first half, we couldn't get anything going. In the second half, Moore and Waters and Riley Leonard were just getting yards, sometimes in big chunks. And that's against a Notre Dame team that is loading up the box. And like I said, is one of the better defensive teams in the country. By the way, speaking of better defensive teams in the country, I think there's no question now, if there ever was any question. I think like a week ago I said, our defense is not quite as great as like UGA, but we're in the next tier. I'm absolutely, at this point, I'm not even sure we're in the next tier. Our defense is elite. Notre Dame really struggled against. Look, other than a 40-yard run on a fake punt and a terrible interception from Riley Leonard that led to some, Notre Dame did very little offensively, against this Duke team.
I would say short of Mitchell Evans, their tight end, who had a career day against us. But again,
it was awesome.
It took a career day from their tight end for us to, kind of be struggling a little bit, because it felt like there's a couple ones where like he bounced the ball, like we had great defense and he was able to tip the ball to himself, or like falling out of bounds or something, make a great play. And there was points also in the final drive where somehow he was able to get open. So yeah, other than him, I think in the second half our defense was tremendous in, again, keeping us in the ball game.
And look, we've talked about Sam Hartman. You mentioned it. The guy was completing 70% of his passes on the season. He goes 15 for 30 against Duke. I mentioned this on the last podcast, that this Duke, our defensive backfield is just ridiculous at how well they're able to cover guys and just prevent quarterbacks from getting easy completions. I thought it was absolutely outstanding by Duke. And then one other little thing, I know you want to mention one other thing, but one little thing I do want to mention, you cannot overrate the fact that Duke was missing Graham Barton for this game at left tackle. Graham Barton is a guy who is going to be drafted in the first, at least at the moment, it looks like he's going to be drafted in the first round of the NFL draft coming up. It doesn't happen often from a Duke player. He is clearly among the, 3, 5 or so best offensive linemen in all of college football. And we were missing him against Notre Dame. It showed. Riley Leonard was pressured a pretty good bit. Duke had trouble opening up those lanes, especially in the first half. So yeah, the takeaway from this game, losing sucks. I hate it, especially like this, where your heart is ripped out in the final minute. But Duke belongs, and Duke is going to be in more big games. This is not a one-off. Duke is going to be in more huge games because this program has arrived. Thank you, Mike Elko.
I mean, again, they acquitted themselves super well. They were in the position they had the lead with 50 seconds left in the game. They still had a chance to win it at the very end until
they had the lead with 35
play.
seconds left in the game.
Yeah. Well, whenever Estime kind of ran into the end zone, but they went toe to toe with Notre Dame. A lot of teams don't do that. And a lot of teams in this type of moment with this type of pressure really wilt. And our guys did not. They may not have played their best game, but they did not wilt to the pressure that having College Game Day and having, the game on ABC at night will do to teams. So I was quite proud of the effort that they put forth. And I think that adds to the hurt and the heartbreak that we didn't pull it off, because I thought we were right there to do it. I did want to, Sam or Jason, before we wrap it up, I did want to hat tip Sam Hartman at the very end of the game. After the game, Riley Leonard's in the medical tent and Sam Hartman's being interviewed because he just won the game. And, he kind of tells Holly Rowe, like, hey, I'm sorry. All I can think about is trying to see if Riley's okay. I need to go check on him right now. And just, promptly leaves the interview. Not in a bad way, but just like, hey, he literally stayed until Riley Leonard emerged from the tent several minutes later, just so he could congratulate him and say, hey, great game, and we'll see you down the road. Again, they have had battles before. Last year, Sam Hartman was at Wake Forest. It felt like the last 37 years he's been at Wake Forest. But they had a shootout between those two guys last year, where we ended up winning 34-31. And so they have, of course, they have at least a brotherhood in the quarterback sense, and being former ACC rivals, so to speak. I thought that was really cool for him in that moment where he, was trying to get over the week before against Ohio State. He got his redemption on the national stage. And the thing that he does is wait to kind of congratulate a player who on our team who had fallen. So I think that's really cool. And I just want to show my respect to Sam Hartman for that.
Amen. I completely agree with you. All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, there's a little bit of basketball news out there. Tyrese, the leader. That story when we return. We're back from the break, and we want to very, very briefly talk about a little bit of news that came out about the Duke men's basketball team. This is, after all, the Duke Basketball Roundup. This news broke on Friday, as Duke had their media day for the opening week of practice, and Jon Scheyer announced the team captains. We, of course, discussed this last week on the podcast. Donald and I made our picks, our projections, and we were correct about two of them. There's no question it was going to be Jeremy Roach. There was no question it was going to be Ryan Young. And Jon Scheyer, by the way, said that Ryan Young is the biggest leader. Brian Young is the guy who steps up and talks the most in practice. And we were like, who's the third? Because Scheyer had tipped his hat that there were going to be three of them. I think I was on Kyle Filipowski. I think you were on Jalen Blake's, right?
Yeah, I think I said I would go with Jalen Blake's over Flip because he was a junior and all of that. But yes.
Right. But we both mentioned that Proctor was a possibility. And I foolishly said, I don't know, I feel like he's not that vocal a guy. And boy, it turns out I'm completely wrong. Tyrese Proctor was named a captain. Jon Scheyer talked extensively about how much of a leader Tyrese Proctor has been literally since he went to Australia a little bit over the summer. But when he came back early in the summer, from that moment on, Tyrese Proctor apparently has been one of the most vocal guys in practice, one of the real leaders on this team. It doesn't sound like there was any controversy or any question about him being named a captain. In fact, the way that the captain process worked is the players voted, and then they gave their votes to the coaches, who then, would either say, okay, yay or nay or whatever on that. And there was unanimity among the players and the coaches that Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, and Ryan Young would be captains. But Tyrese Proctor is obviously the sort of most controversial part of that. To me, the really interesting thing is, and Donald, we've brought this up a couple times on the podcast, but I feel like it's worth mentioning again. People forget that last summer Tyrese Proctor was not here. Mm-hmm. He was in Australia. He's playing with the national team, but he was not working with the Duke program. And I think there's a piece of me, I know, that always forgets that he had, in that regard, he had a truncated freshman season. Even though, like, we saw him on the floor the whole year, there was a degree of his integration with the team, his adjustment to college basketball, to American basketball, all those kind of things that was shortened, that didn't happen the way it's supposed to happen for most guys. And so when you think about how great he was toward the end of the year, and then you couple that with this notion that he has been the really vocal leader of the team since the beginning of summer this year, it really, you got to think it sets Tyrese Proctor up to have a super special season.
And he, mentioned at the end of this past season that he wasn't going to do any of the international duty that he was doing with Australia. Obviously, there was the FIBA World Cup, and Australia was like, hey, you can come play for us and be at the World Cup. And he said, no, I want to stay on campus and help, develop my team, develop this team and really get to know my teammates. I thought that was probably something that, all the players like, oh man, this dude turned down playing with professionals to, kind of make sure that he wanted to, exercise his vocalness and become a leader with us. I think that's great. I also think, some of the guys that we did mention, right? Just because Jalen Blakes is named the captain, just because Kyle Filipowski is not named the captain, doesn't mean that they won't show leadership during the year. I mean, I'm pretty sure, Jason, and someone can check me on this, I'm pretty sure since he's been here, Jalen Blakes has won the summer weightlifting belt is given out every year. And that, again, is a testament to, hey, I'm working hard, and that exudes in other people, right? That kind of example. I think, when you look at it, it sounds like Tyrese is going to be the more vocal one. The lead by example person is going to come from Jeremy Roach, and Ryan Young's kind of the overall leader that can bring everything together and bring a whole team together. I think that's great that they have that balance. And so I'm really happy that when it's named, we know who they are, and also that these guys get a chance to show what that leadership can be. And this team, again, we'll say it many more times, this team has expectations. And so part of that is going to be leadership needs to be there from start to finish. And now that we know who our leaders are, we can go out and we can, focus on the other goals that we have for this team.
Yeah. And by the way, one other item from that media day where they announced the captains, there are a number of players who were interviewed by the media. I wanted to highlight one of the comments. TJ Power was asked how the season was going to go, and he said, ready for these words, people? He said, "We will be playing in April." I like that. I like that. I like the sound of that.
Kid. A smart kid. That's why he goes to Duke.
Yeah. I don't know how much TJ actually knows about college, about playing college basketball to know how difficult it is to be playing in April, but boy, I like his confidence. I like it a lot.
We have to have that confidence. That's part of it, right? Confidence, leadership, elite skill, talent, a little bit of luck mixed in there. It's a nice cocktail that everyone wants to drink at the Final Four in April.
Drink it up. I'll get drunk on that one for sure. All right, that's going to wrap it up here. That is going to wrap it up here on the latest episode of the Duke Basketball Roundup. Donald, like you said, a bittersweet episode. We'll be back at you in just a few days. Who knows what we're going to have? I don't know. We can't do an NC State preview for football because that's still a couple of weeks away, and we'll figure it out, though. We're always here for you in your feed.
This would be the time where people, if they want to, they can email us, dbrpodcast@gmail.com. Maybe you guys have some questions for us. We can answer them midweek. Sounds like a plan to me.
That's a great plan. We also may be trying to get a guest. By the way, I sort of teased that we were going to get a guest. We were supposed to get a member of College Game Day. We were hoping that ESPN would be able to do that for us. They then went radio silent.
It happens.
Midday Friday, I was like, "Are we getting somebody? We're getting someone."
The number of like guests that we were like, "Yeah, we're about to get this guest," and then they don't show up or something happens.
It's a difficult process, but it's a process. All right, for Donald, for the absent Sam. Sam's at a bachelor party. Sam is in no condition to do a podcast right now. For me, Jason, here's the Duke Band to play us out and take us home. So can you see this thing on my eye? This cut?
Yeah. What happened to the other guy?
I had a story. We were gonna tell everybody that I fought a bear because we were out in the woods. I was in the woods this morning with a bunch of guys on this retreat that I was on, and there
Mhm.
was this big old tree that had fallen across a river, and I climbed up on top of it because I wanted to. It wasn't a river; it was a creek. I went out to the middle of the creek because I wanted to look at some of the fish that were in the water. I was like, "Oh, this is
Yeah.
cool. This is great." Thinking I'm still 45 and in shape. I get to the end of the tree, and now it's easier climbing up than getting down.
Of
I
course.
jump I jump off, my foot hits a root, and I take a total header, bam, like face first, wham, right into the ground. And that cut you see, that's from
Uh-huh.
my glasses. My glasses,
Oh, your glasses like snapped.
yeah. And the nose bridge thing went right into my forehead and cut it right open.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that a
Yeah, no fun.
stitchable thing, or is that just like
It's just
a boo-boo?
it's kind of small. It's not that. I mean, it looks worse than it is, I think. But I felt like
Yeah.
an idiot. I'm around all these guys who are like,
I mean,
"You okay?"
as they was saying, Tommy Boy, it doesn't feel like right here, like not here or here, but right here.
But I felt like such an idiot doing it. Anyway, yeah. But there were like 6 of us who were on this hike, and like another 12 guys were back at the cabin doing something different. And everyone was like, "Just tell them you fought off a bear." I'm like, "I'm not gonna say I fought off a bear. Are you kidding me?"
Jason, do you know what, like, I've encountered a bear before, and do you know what happens when you see somebody like me fighting a bear? What is your job? Do you know what your job is?
To run away.
No, it's to help the bear.
To help the bear. Yeah.
No, don't run, fight, or if it's a grizzly bear, then you just be fast. And here's the thing: the other going rate about seeing a bear and a bear come after you, you don't have to be faster than the bear. You just have to be faster than the slowest person in your group.
Yes. So our guide, who had a nature guide who was taking us on this hike, he said, if you see a bear, if it's black,
Fight back.
yeah, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. And if it's white, you're already dead because it's been stalking you for an hour.
Yep.
I was like, that's pretty good. Black, fight back. Brown, lie down. White, you're already dead. It don't matter.
Don't
You're
worry
dead.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Polar bears are ruthless.
Polar bears coming for your ass. They're gonna come for you. Yeah. Oh, by the way, one of the really funny things on this retreat this weekend with these 20 guys was that because I was like totally into the football game, everyone was like, "Oh, you went to Duke?" Oh, and by the way, like the Saturday evening, I was wearing a Duke shirt and a Duke hat, and I mean, like I was decked out. And everyone was like, "Oh, you went to Duke, huh?" And one of the guys there, who's a friend of mine, was like, "Yeah, Jason has a podcast." And so everyone's talking to me and asking about it. I think I got 5 more subscribers or so, dude. All these people are like, "Yeah, I'll listen to your podcast." It was pretty funny.